call to order at 5 p.m. Any adjustments to the agenda? Anyone?
8.1 should be a discussion item at this meeting and an action item at the next meeting, simply because
Yeah, because you got to discuss.
that's the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah. So this is the code of conduct. We should move that
Okay.
to a discussion and vote on. You're right.
Even though we do it every year? We have to
Yep.
warn it as.
All right, so that will become 7.4, discussion matter, code of conduct, and struck from action matters and move everything up. Anything else? So audience and communications, this is sort of the part where everybody gets to say their piece about stuff that's really not on the agenda, and I will tell you all that the budget is, of course, on the agenda later on. So at this point, if there's anything you'd like to address, sort of off topic. Okay. 5.0, presentations. Tonight we have a presentation on school counseling by Ms. Batty and Ms. Nelson.
So we're going to start with a video. How do we do it like?
Thanks, Audrey.
You want the other one off?
Good.
start with that because we want to make it all about the kids and show you some of the kids' voices and kids' faces as we move forward through our presentation tonight.
So obviously our presentation's on the CCS School Counseling Program. My name is Kathy Batty. I'm the middle level school counselor.
And I'm Vicki Nelson. I'm the elementary school counselor.
We have 3 main outcomes of tonight's program. But overall, by the end of our presentation, we are just hoping that you have a better sense, better understanding of the CCS School Counseling Program and how it fits into the other systems within our school.
So part of that being that school counseling is part of the CSSU Coordinated School Health Model in relation to the other components, and you can see that we're all centered around the mission of CSSU.
Many of you are familiar with the MTSS system. It stands for the multi-tiered system of supports. And we use the same system the way that academic subjects use it. So we analyze our own data, and that could be data collected through SWIS, which is behavioral data, attendance records, nurse visits, and kid talk meetings, and qualitative data, of course, to move students through the 3 tiers of intervention. Students also can shift within tiers pretty quickly based on the moment and their need at that particular day, in that particular time.
So moving on, so we're going to kind of break this down. So starting with Tier 1. So part of Tier 1, the way to think about it is that it reaches all students. So the first thing that you saw tonight, the school-wide LipDub, as we call it, is actually reaching all students. It's connecting K-8 through the whole building. It's also part of our positive school behavior supports, where we're supporting all students with language about being allies and upstanders, supporting students through classroom guidance lessons. We call them U-Skills in K-4 and Universal Skills in 5 through 8. We also, for the whole school, we look at SWIS data, or our behavior data. Kathy and I accommodate or change our Tier 1 interventions based on what our data is telling us the needs are in the school. And we also use, as part of our Tier 1 guidelines, is we use the American School Counseling Association Mindsets and Behavior Standards for Student Success to also drive some of our program components. Another example of Tier 1 for our students would be, we're going to break out as our U-Skills lesson. So I'm going to talk about a grade 4 U-Skills lesson that I do as an example. Focuses on kindness and empathy. You could think of this as our bullying prevention. It's also, we kind of use the words around being a bucket filler. There's a really great book called Have You Filled a Bucket Today? And this book is about all the things you do that are kindness. Fill other people up. You can be a bucket filler or a bucket dipper. And at CCS, we don't talk about being a bucket dipper as much more as we teach kids about what you can do to fill each other up, and how what you do affects others. And so that kind of connects to kindness and empathy, which reaches our entire population.
And I have an example of an 8th grade U-Skills class. So as you can see, the unity from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade, we are really thoughtful about our programming, our curriculum. What we're using in each classroom needs to connect with what kids already know and where they need to get. The mindsets and behaviors are actually standards, the same way that there's standards that are being taught, are targets for literacy or math or other core subjects. There's standards for the social emotional curriculum that we are teaching as well. So in 8th grade, right now I'm teaching a unit called Safer Choices. In this particular class, kids we're creating role plays about how to say no, or decision making. So when you're confronted with a difficult topic, how do you say no? And they practice role plays so they can actually get into the mindset of using no body language, no tone of voice, repeating the same no message, and coming up with alternatives, suggested alternatives to the activity that they're making a decision about. Our Tier 2 in that MTSS system would be more focused intervention. We do a lot of small group work. I'm going to say right now that all the kids who are in our small groups, we try to cycle many kids through our small groups. So it does not mean if somebody's in a small group that they necessarily have a need that must be met through this Tier 2 focused intervention. But we do have the opportunity to run groups that are very specific and for a very specific purpose. for example, if the data shows us that there's a need for some self-regulation with one particular population, we might pull those kids in and go on maybe a 6-week cycle where we're using curriculum or lessons that are helped to aim to teach kids self-regulation or self-control. Students can meet criteria for a small group or for this more focused intervention through ESTs, the educational support team meetings, by teachers or parents' referrals, or by self-recommendation. So one example of a small group, and this is one that's self-selected by students, is the Student Leadership Council. They're focused on service learning projects that are going to benefit the whole school. In this particular picture on your right, it's a picture of I think it's actually all 8th graders from last year, right after they finished painting two Foursquare boards outside on our playground and 2 hopscotch courts. The decision to make more structured activities at recess came from looking again at our Swiss behavior data and saying we need to do some things here that would keep kids focused and give them an outlet that's going to promote more positive interaction. So we created the Student Leadership Council painted 4 courts on the blacktop.
So I'm going to talk about Tool Time, which is a small group in 4th grade. I have to tell you, I gush a little bit about Tool Time. This has been ongoing, this group, since last year. What do 4th grade boys like? They like tools. What do we need to give them? Skills. So we kind of call it Tool Time. This group fills my bucket every week, just like I talk about bucket fillers, as much as it fills the kids up. I just have to say out loud, this group is really special to me. The reason why it was formed was that last year our data pointed to supporting a core group of boys in the 3rd grade who struggled both academically and behaviorally. So this group, Tool Time, that we carried into this school year is the time they come together to learn skills around self-regulation and working with others, cooperation. So I'm in constant contact with the boys' parents, their teachers. I'm connecting with them on a constant basis so that I can assess how they're doing, so we can make sure that the skills are transferable outside the confines of the school counseling room. So now we're getting into Tier 3 supports. So this is where we do some individualized programming and support. Referrals for Tier 3 or one-on-one support or counseling the referrals would mostly be made through Kid Talks, through our educational support teams, or through data review meetings in order to address the needs of any of these individual students. Some of the topics that Kathy and I meet about are anxiety, social stressors, family changes, or peer conflict. Those are just to name a few. So what we want to highlight, my note didn't come up there. There's only one note. So that is a note that a student wrote to Kathy.
And in the handout, you will see there's a separate little image that's just missing. I don't know why.
There's an image missing there, and can I just read it to you because it says so much in just a couple words. It says, "You've helped me a lot this year," with a little heart. And I have to tell you, we just wanted to show you our connections with kids and that it's very reciprocal. We support them and we grow with them.
Oh, there we go.
There it is. Oh, there it is.
It just had a transition we didn't know.
There it is.
So everything you've just heard in the MTSS system, those are direct services. The bulk of a school counselor's time should be focused on direct services because that's really where you get the most bang for your buck with kids. We also do a plethora, though, of indirect services. So we have to fit this stuff in throughout our day. Both or one of us are members of many committees. And some of them are committees that have met every year, and some of them are committees that's a one-year-long committee. I'm trying to think if there's anything on. I don't see something on there right now, but an example would be the configuration. Oh, there it is. Configuration committee or gender study. Those things might be a one-year commitment, but some of them, like program council or climate committee, are year after year commitments. We also act as the liaison for the school building and outside resources, often when they have to do with mental health or other support services that students might need outside the building. We spend quite a bit of time cultivating those relationships outside the building, so when we're in need, we've already created the connection that will get us the support and services we need very quickly. And besides that, we do a lot of presentations to our staff and outside of the building, and we also go to a lot of professional development. So we're filling in a pretty busy day, as you're about to see.
And I just want to make more comment if you go back to one thing, is that Kathy and I, you can see that is what we, the indirect services we also are a part of systemically, but there are some of those that we do a lot of work with. So for example, PBL, which stands for
Proficiency-based learning.
Kathy has been spending a lot of time really supporting that as a CSSU-wide initiative. And I just want to mention that this year is the first year I'm going to the American School Counseling Association conference, and I'll be presenting at that conference this year. So we really try to broaden our knowledge and our depth and work with other communities and within the CSU and abroad. So speaking of the day in the life of a school counselor, we can definitely tell you that this is not static. This is not what every Tuesday looks like. This is what maybe Tuesday will look like, or maybe Thursday, but it's very dynamic. So what we did is we just want to give you an idea of what a day for us might look like, where we spend our time with students, consulting, supporting our lunch groups, on the phone with parents. In there's the CHAMP Challenge Project, which is another one of our Tier 1 or school-wide initiatives. And then after school, we do have quite a few meetings that we're a part of. So we just want to give people a snippet to let you know what we are doing during the day.
Though I can say that another typical day would be today, where I basically cleared a calendar from about 9 to noon supporting a student, and Vicki cleared a calendar from 12 to 3 supporting a student. So when a student is in crisis and needs support, that always trumps anything else that is going on for that day. So things can change, and it's really nice that we're available to meet those needs. So we spend time every spring talking to each other and talking to the administration about what our goals are for the next year. The past couple years, we've really focused on the K-8 curriculum and meeting ASCA standards. Last spring, we gave ourselves 2 big goals that I think we've pretty much met this year. One is the introduction of CHAMP Challenge, which was our revamping of the Tier 1 PBIS system. So it's promoting positive behavior and supports throughout the school. We renamed it and revitalized it to try
with student support.
To try to get it back rolling in our building. We also have really focused on data and letting data drive our intervention. We meet on bi-weekly meetings with the school administrators, the 2 of us, and our playroom facilitator to analyze the data that has come in during that time period and how does that guide our next steps. So we're never acting in isolation or based on our own whim. We're acting based on the needs of our students.
I want to talk about, are you going to jump in? You good? A focus that Kathy and I are really continuing is the ally upstander language within the school. I like to say to people who ask about, like, what do you do for bullying, is we don't put up signs that say bully with a big arrow through it, because that's not bullying prevention. Telling kids not to bully is not bullying prevention. Telling kids what to do is bullying prevention. So, and it's also teaching about kindness and empathy, which we're integrating in everywhere. So if you come to CCS, you will hear about allies and upstanders all the time. Allies take care of others, take care of the target, they'll help the target. Upstanders stand up to people who are being unkind. We're also very cautious about using the bullying language. We teach kids that bullying is repeated unkind behavior, so they know exactly what it is, and we talk a lot about unkind behavior and what that looks like, because things start small, but when they get repeated can get really big, and we want our kids to know there's that continuum. The other thing that we're really focusing on is diversity and tolerance. That is actually something, a big highlight, I would say, going into the next year. We're continuing to do a lot of work around that. So we just wanted to say that we really enjoyed putting this presentation together. It's really helpful for us to reflect on our program and lay it out for ourselves, and so we just were wondering if there's any questions about the presentation or about the school counseling program.
And if you're lucky enough to be a school board member, you also did receive an email from us an hour ago with a whole lot more information, so you can always go back to reference it.
So I don't have a question, but I was in the school today in a fourth grade class doing Reading 10 Racism, and so we were talking about racism and prejudice in general, and one of the students used that upstander language. So it's not just something they hear, it's something they internalize and think about and connect to other things. So it's working, I think.
Thanks.
Thank you, that was fabulous. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on. So next is, we have the principal's report. And did anybody have any specific questions on what was sent out? I would ask Greg and Audrey just to give a quick sort of next steps on the TB testing. Has that been scheduled or?
It has been. I'd like to just say a little bit about the enrichment.
And we're gonna get there too, that's actually got its own bullet point.
Oh, okay. So you want to, so about tuberculosis, other than what's written here, is just, the Department of Health was a little bit late getting us the parent letter that came in today. So that's going to go out tomorrow. But the dates have been set, as they indicate here in the memo, and that is the next and final, we're glad to say final round of skin testing is going to happen the week of the 30th, March 30th. So 2 weeks from yesterday. And the testing is going to happen Monday and Tuesday of that week. And the tests are going to be read on Wednesday and Thursday, with Thursday and Friday being saved for kids who are absent on Monday or Tuesday. Logistics are being worked out, and
Great.
And Greg, that's everybody in the school is
correct.
part of that cycle?
Yes. And this will be, someone asked about this today. There was some, if you remember, there was an initial testing that involved about 140 children, and then some days later, there was everybody else. And this one window covers everybody for the second round. They don't have to come back again.
Okay. Anything else on the principal's report, or we're gonna, the enrichment piece is part of that, but it's actually, we can talk about that next. So yeah, if you want to give us an enrichment, update, that'd be good.
Sure, I can start off with the Y after-school enrichment offerings. We started off the year with 2 programs that were pretty successful, with our 3 to 5 homework club, which pretty much started in October and has continued steady on. And actually, enrollment is around 10 students on average per week, and it's 2 days per week on, I think, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And what's nice is that we have one of our paraprofessionals who works in the school who's actually running the program, so she knows the curriculum to work with the students. And one of our other programs that was very popular in the fall, one of our former teachers, Tom Scatcherd, offered a Charlotte newspaper club with Shay Evans, and it was so popular that they're offering another round of that this spring. In addition, some programs that started now are a Zumba after-school enrichment, which has been very popular. I stopped in it the other day, and there's a lot of kids in there, and all age groups, which is nice. We're starting a middle-level homework club, and actually Kathy Batty helped design that with the after-school program, because the 3 to 5 program was a little different. That program, the students, right at 3 o'clock, they go out, have a little snack, and then have a little recess, and then come back in, and then start their work with our middle-level students. We really want to focus on the executive functioning piece. So they're prioritizing and looking at their planners, what do they have to get done, and then they're actually spending an hour doing the work that's the most critical for that day. So we just started that, and we have about 5 to 6 students participating in that. And again, we have another paraeducator who works on the middle level team who is running that and coordinating it, and she's very familiar with the 6-8 curriculum. So it's very nice that we're having people coordinate these programs who are tied to the school and can really help students in that piece. This spring we're looking at a rugby club coming in from the Burlington High School to actually work with students. They're volunteering their time to start a mini club. And there's a woodworking club that's going to be started, and I think it's going to be in the art room. 2 volunteers in the community.
Actually, it's going to be on stage.
On the stage. We had to find the right spot to do that. And Caitlin Irwin, who's the director of this program, is actually looking for other ideas. As you can see from looking at this, a gardening club, Lego robotics is very popular, so she's been working with some people who handle the Legos piece to bring that into the school. So, and I think what we've seen this year, the program started slow with a few clubs, and then as they got to know Caitlin and the other Y staff who are working with us, it's now grown and more people are applying to the programs that we're offering. So we're very pleased and see a trend with more people signing up. And Caitlin, we just met with her last week, she plans to send a survey out to the parents in the spring so she can get ideas for them what they're looking for. So in the fall, she'll have already had different groups that she's talking to bring in as activities for the fall. So we're pleased with how that program is running this year.
Great.
And how's the money part working out? Because part of when we were thinking about, in addition to just wanting a better offerings for kids after school, more sort of akin to what's offered in the other schools, we were just concerned that it was, self-sustaining. It sounds like there's enough participation so
Yeah.
we anticipate that. And it's your recommendation to continue with the Y, I imagine, rather than to switch to, what's the other one called? Step?
Part two.
Part two? Part two.
At this point, we feel strongly
Okay.
to continue with it.
Great.
Did you just answer a question about the enrollment size in the Y program?
No.
No, the enrichment programs, and is it worth having the programs? That's
Mhm.
what I believe you were asking. I think, are you asking about the enrollment in the actual Y program?
I am.
The after-school program itself?
As in, is there a limit? How's that work?
There isn't a limit that I'm aware of. I believe on average, we have about 20 students enrolled at this point.
I
On
think we
and
might
off.
be up closer to 25.
Yeah. But they would have to just hire more adults for the ratio of students that we have. But it has grown since our 4 years here.
Are you planning to actually have these kids play rugby?
We haven't worked that out yet. I think they're going to show them skills and how to just learn about the sport. But again, it's some high school students with the rugby league in Burlington who are going to come in and work with students who are interested in learning about another sport.
And this is not a question about the homework club per se, it's more a question about the approach to homework in the school. What is it these days?
Our approach to homework?
Yeah.
Well, we believe that students should have practice with concepts and skills that they've learned in the classroom, and that's what homework should be. And we have, depending on grade level, we have a component of how many minutes they should be spending on homework on average based on each grade level. Again, it should be practice of concepts and skills that they've learned in the class that week or during that day in school.
Can you give some examples of how much time per particular grade level you expect?
So for 5th grade, because those are my grade levels, 5th grade, it's probably a half an hour to spend on assignments. In 6th grade, it may be, 7th, 8th grade, it may be about an hour to work on projects. At the lower grade levels, I believe it's a little different.
General guideline would be about 10 minutes per grade level. So, pretty minimal in kindergarten and 1st grade, and 2nd grade you get into some routines. The other thing that was just a piece about the YMCA that we don't want to lose sight of, when we were talking with them last spring about our arrangement and our collaboration, one of the things they mentioned was this idea of the after-school director having hours during the school day at no cost to us. In fact, their contribution to the school is more this year than it was. We renegotiated that as well. And so we took them up on that, and we have Logan McKee, who is the after-school director, in the school for 10 hours a week. Again, there's no cost to us, and we can pretty much use him as we want. And what we set forth in the spring is basically, we'd love to have some alternative options for kids at recess. So kids who aren't necessarily wanting to go out and play or do some other things, that there's some kind of other alternative. So that's that second paragraph around that lunchtime enrichment piece.
I'm not clear. My name's Susan Smith.
Yeah, actually, could you stand up and just say your name for the camera? I'm sorry.
Susan Smith. These enrichment after-school activities, are those things that kids have to pay for, or the school pays for, or how's that work?
The parents have to pay for the students to participate in them. It's pay to play, they'll play to participate.
The fees are very modest, and if there's a financial challenge, assistance can be available. Essentially, the fee for the particular enrichment activity depends on the cost that it would take to run it. So you could have somebody volunteering their time, or you could have somebody looking to just cover a little bit of their time. You could have supplies involved or not involved. So that would determine the amount. But the Y just basically wants to cover their expenses.
But they manage the programs.
Yes.
The YMCA manages the whole thing.
Tammy Hall. So these para-educators that help in these homework clubs, are they paid for being there longer?
They're not, they're being paid through the Y program, not through us. Mhm.
Okay, moving on. Facilities Committee report to the board, minimal this week. We met this morning. We're putting together some designs for the projects that were approved to be funded on Election Day. We'll be meeting again later this month so things can go out to bid. The money doesn't become final until after the date.
I think we kind of have, do we have to have the door open? I think we have to have the door open.
When there were people in the hallway.
I don't know, it seems like we should have the door open. Thanks. Even cracked, that's good.
Thank you, Tammy.
Before you go on.
Yeah,
About-
no, go ahead.
Are you still talking about facilities?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, ask your question.
So the bond was approved.
Yes.
Is the work, what's the disconnect between the bond having been approved and the things going out to bid? Are the proposals not specific enough, or what is the story?
So there needs to be a little design around the lighting project. The roof project's ready to go out to bid, but technically we're not supposed to go out to bid until April 4th, once the money's final. There's been some movement on the elevator. The lead door they've contacted 7 vendors, and they're getting some more proposals back. But the bids will go out next month probably.
Is there a problem with the door?
With what?
The door of the elevator? I mean, in terms of finding someone who can do whatever the work is?
No. There's actually a myriad of options, and they're combing through them for us at this point. I hope to be more specific about all that next month. 7.0, discussion matters. We'll start with the policies. Kristen, did you want to call any of these out? Did you? No, I read through them. They seem pretty standard. But did anybody have any comments on any of them in particular? We can go through them one point. 7.1.1 is the 18-year-old students.
That doesn't apply to us.
Yeah, right. So 7.1.2 is the eligibility for kindergarten. 7.1.3, admission of students. Public solicitations at 7.1.4. Gifts at 7.1.5. This will come up again next month, obviously.
Well, it'll be an action matter, so if anyone wants anything to be changed or has questions, this is the time. Otherwise, they're just presented to us next month for a yes or no. Cindy made some minor changes after our policy committee meeting, but these are not a big divergence from what we have in place now.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
If anyone thinks of anything in the meantime, our next meeting is next Wednesday, so just let whoever's the policy person, probably me, no.
7.2 communications, there's a board's corner, something for the next paper.
Do you know the date?
I don't know the date.
Brett
Brett,
might
you wouldn't
know.
happen to know the date when you would want an article from us at any point in time?
It's up to you based on, we if you want to write something about the budget or
Yeah.
based on what it is. We have 2 issues coming out next month. April 29th would be the next deadline for the next issue.
March 20th, right?
Excuse me, March 29th.
Yeah, great.
And then April 5th would be the deadline, the issue subsequent to that.
Cool. Thank you. For the 29th, I'll put something together, I guess, depending on how everything gets approved tonight, and then we can talk from there.
Okay. I would think, depending on the outcome, what I'm hearing at least is people want to understand better why it's likely we're going to go forward with the 2 administrator model. So that would be my preference for the article, because I think really there's a need for greater understanding of why we think that's the best choice. So that's my plug for what we would write about.
And a question about that, which issue are you talking about of the news?
I guess for the 3/29 deadline.
Which will come out when?
Following Thursday, which is how many days in March? So April 3rd-ish?
But prior to the vote?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because I would think another article in another issue prior to the vote would also be helpful.
Yes.
A bigger picture, I think, take on,
Yeah.
it's up, whatever, 1%,
Yep.
108,000, just to put it into
Bigger
context for people of sort of what the impact is in taxes, all that.
Let's do this. We had moved code of conduct into the discussion matters, and let's do that now before we start talking about the budget, if that's okay with everybody. So 7.3 is going to be code of conduct. It's in here. Clyde's requested it'll be an action matter at the next meeting. This is just the board code of conduct we approve every year. Any discussion? That's the easiest one all night. I like it. Okay. 7.4, discussion on the budget. So, I guess I'll start. It's my feeling that the vote should be soon. Well, what's this? I really need to get my glasses checked. So at the end of last meeting, we discussed a $25,000 reduction in the current budget based on the reduction of one administrator to sort of a part-time position. I think that's perfectly, that's where I would go. We do have a couple of date issues about the vote. Susan was kind enough to correspond with Mary Mead and talk to a few people at the school as far as dates go. April 9th seems to be the soonest we could do it. We do have a conflict at the school that day. There's Peter Pan is going to be put on, so magically in the NPR room. And so the next day is Friday, which is a terrible day to do anything. And Mary Mead is gone on vacation the following Tuesday. And her current assistant is brand new and doesn't feel comfortable running a vote by herself. I don't blame her. I open all that up for discussion. My feeling is if we did it on the 13th, that would be fine. That's the following Monday. It removes that conflict in the NPR room. But I'm willing to open anything anybody would like to say, and I will ask questions in a minute.
I think we should shoot for that Monday. Otherwise, Mary has that vacation, and then
School vacation.
we have school vacation, and then Mary has another vacation, or vice versa. But there's a lot of dates that are not available between school break and Mary's vacation schedule. So rather than have people vote during Peter Pan, I think we should vote on that Monday. I just think we'll need to really, since people, even if we'd had it that Thursday, because people are used to voting on Tuesday, we'll just have to make sure that we really reach out through Front Porch Forum and the papers to let people know it's on Monday.
Yep.
And maybe do the sandwich board in front of the school. I don't know if there's sandwich boards available at Town Hall or at the fire station or something, so that people on that side of town can be reminded.
Anything else?
And we're all set with the athletic director and moving baseball practice.
We'll make it work.
Yeah, okay.
We'll make that
Great,
work.
thanks.
Excellent. A problem I didn't know about that's solved. I love it. I open it up for comments. Anybody further comments? Yeah, this is about the budget in general.
All right, so you know I'm outspoken about this.
No.
Imagine that. So my name's Tammy Hall again. And, last time that we were at the budget meeting, there was this heartfelt letter from 30 or so of the school teachers, most of which don't live in our town or vote in our town. But I did want to remind you that 595 people voted no, and mostly they voted no because they don't like your two-principal policy. So if you only reduce it $25,000, I think a lot of people are going to talk to their friends and neighbors, and we're going to be right back here again.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Dan Flaster, and to follow on what Tammy said, I understand there's going to be a discussion of why the board feels $25,000 reduction is appropriate. I'd like to know what the board is doing to understand what those 595 people meant by sending the no vote. Instead of telling them your position, which we already know, what are you doing to hear our position?
Well, this is our second of the post defeat of the budget open meetings. We have been clear a couple times that we think 2 administrators are necessary to run the school. We have reduced one of those administrators down. We're going to have a lead principal and an instructional leader who will have a reduced role. So we feel we've done at least a little compromising on that point.
So would you go to a vote without sort of trying to understand if $25,000 compromise, as you put it, is sufficient in response to voting no on the budget? Because it seems like that would be a leap of faith that probably is, in my opinion, too great to take, considering the expense of a vote and the number of people that voted it down.
Well, the vote was close. It was 47 votes was the difference. Unfortunately, the best way to find out if $25,000 is enough is a vote. And actually, there was a discussion at town meeting about the expense of holding a vote, and it turns out not to be that expensive.
Yeah, to answer your question, we did hear, Mark mentioned there were 2 meetings after the vote. There were budget meetings leading up to the vote. And there was also a special meeting relative specifically to the administrative model. And we did get feedback from the audience in each of those formats on this particular topic. And it's pretty evenly divided, right? So one way or the other, roughly half the voters might be disappointed, whichever side of it we came down So we used our best judgment, based on not just the feedback of voters, but also the information that we have to what's best for the school, best for the kids. Teachers provided feedback. The superintendent provided her counsel. So to the extent that, we sort of weighed all that and came to a conclusion, it was somewhere not at either extreme. It wasn't one principal, it wasn't two full-time principals in the current format that we have them. It was one sort of lead principal. And again, this is responding to a point that I think Tammy might have brought up at one of our earlier meetings. Forgive me if it was someone else, but there was some advocacy for accountability residing with one of the two principals. And then we have the second role, supporting primarily instructional development. And it's a reduced role in terms of days that we're paying the individual for, which leads to that approximately $25,000 of savings that we're budgeting for. The precise amount wouldn't be known until you hire the individuals and find out what their healthcare elections are and so forth and so on. But we did make every effort to listen and did get a good deal of input, not just from the public, but also from people within the school who have a pretty good sense of what goes into running it.
And I guess also to that point, I do think we have a responsibility to explain better to the community why this is the model that we think that we should go forward with. And perhaps, I don't know if that'll change anyone's mind. Some people will vote no matter what. Some people will vote yes no matter what. But I think it might be helpful for our community to have a better idea of these are the responsibilities that we invest our administrators with, and this is why we feel we need to have at least 1.8 positions to be able to get all of that work done.
So I just suggest that with all of that conversation that happened in the meetings, that I believe I read in the paper that one of the board members was surprised at the vote being coming out the way it was, that they had no idea that there was a concern.
Well, that was my quote, and it was somewhat, it was more or less what I said. But in years past, we've had 2 other budgets that failed, and we had hundreds of people showing up at meetings, not just 1 or 2 people voicing dissatisfaction. We would have tons and tons of front porch forum postings. This time around, we had a couple people at board meetings expressing dissatisfaction with where the numbers were coming out, and a couple people on front porch forum. That's where I was going with. In other years, we could have been a little more apprehensive about the likelihood of the budget passing or not. This year, it was not that same sort of numbers coming out against it ahead of time. So that's why I was surprised that the vote didn't pass.
So maybe that's evidence of the process of expecting people to be able to show up at 5 o'clock at a meeting. Maybe it's not the best way to hear from the community if they agree with your strategy or not. Because, as you said, the best way is to take the vote. Maybe there's a different way or some other way for you guys to be polling or getting the pulse of the community on this subject. Let me ask, is there going to be grade delineations in this new model? Someone's responsible for these grades and another person for these grades?
With respect to the instructional leadership, there will be. So there are other parts of the job beyond supporting teachers in the curriculum and in the delivery of that curriculum. But that specific piece will have grade-specific responsibilities.
So there will be one person responsible for pre-K to some grade and then the other person for the other grades?
So there'll be one principal who comes to board meetings. There'll be one principal who's in charge of the budget. And they won't be split, it's going to be the same person. But as far as in-school dealing with the instructional piece, there'll be some split of how that's worked out. But now, having said that, everything hasn't been settled yet. We haven't hired anybody on that piece, but that's the expectation.
So what does that mean, the instructional piece? If I saw someone working on the instructional piece, what would I be looking at?
The curriculum, the handling of the teachers in a specific grade.
So the principal manages the curriculum?
Yes, within the school. What?
Does one of the principals want to address that?
Yeah, go ahead, speak to it. That's okay.
So what it would look like is the supervision and evaluation of all staff, which would include teachers and support staff. So that's the custodians, the office, the paraeducators. It would include student behavior management and working with the guidance counselors as they presented earlier today, along with the behavior specialists. It's the curriculum implementation is probably a better word than management. It's the working with food service and making sure that the quality food service program, all of those kind of pieces, and just being also out in the classrooms and actually observing what's happening. Oversimplification, but.
And what we heard from a bunch of teachers was that they wanted that time they have with administration to go over the data that they're getting and how can they best implement things in the classroom to make sure that all kids are getting that best first instruction, all kids are getting what they need to be successful in first grade and fifth grade and whatever grade it is. So I think when we were in school, I don't think our principals were in there. I don't think our principals knew who we were. But the principals today are in there. They know the kids in the age groups that they're involved with. And they know that, you know, Johnny's been struggling in reading, but these are the interventions the teacher's trying to make some improvement and then following up. Are those improvements made?
There's other people that had their hands up and we can come back. Okay. Jill, I don't know. If you just stand up.
I'm Jill Lowry, and I apologize for not coming to the last meeting, but I have a question about the budgeting process. I'm more concerned about the CSSU district office and the spending that goes on there. It seems like every time we have to cut spending at our level, it's at our school, and it's our teachers, and it's our programs. So, you know, I was doing my homework, you know, and I'm not perfect at all of this, but I can do some basic math. And so, you know, when you read the expenditures of the district office, just the CVU budget alone, the last 3 years has gone up $385,000. That's just the CVU budget. And I apologize, I didn't bring my sheet for the Charlotte Central budget, but, you know, it just tells me that every time we turn around, the district office is just growing and growing and growing, and there's no fiscal responsibility, you know, for all of us hardworking people that want our kids to be taught well, managed, you know, have a great education. So when you guys did your last budget cut, and I apologize, I had to work, but was any of that brought into consideration, you know, to cut some of the money that we send to the district office? I mean, I know that we have to roll in the special education, which goes from, you know, 2 million to like 17 million, you know, with this special ed and everything. But, you know, was there any talk of how we can cut some of that spending, you know, at that district office that helps us save money at our school level?
So,
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, the CSSU has a preliminary budget. The CSSU board, of which there's 3 of us on that board from Charlotte, approves a budget, but it's not final until all the local school budgets pass. Am I saying that right, Cindy? So, I mean, technically we don't have a CSSU budget, but we know what our apportionment is. And, you know, as one of the representatives to CSSU, I feel like every line item was really examined carefully during that budget process as well. Those budget meetings tend not to be, there were maybe 2 people who came to any of those meetings, would you say? Maybe 2 people in the community. So I don't know what we can do to sort of change that to make it so that more people are aware of those meetings and can come. But I don't think it's out of control spending. I think it's hard to compare everything because with special ed moving up there now, other things over the years by state law get transferred from us to that office. So I think, am I wrong? It's hard to compare apples to apples there because sort of what we are required to have there changes. So things come out of our budget and goes there, and usually then gets reassessed back to us. But I felt as a CSSU board member, we looked at every line item to make sure that it was something we needed. There were things we wanted that we didn't add because we kept saying, all the local members kept saying, it's really hard when we're back in our communities when they're saying, you gotta find a way to save as much money as possible. So we forewent some things that we thought would be great for kids because we just didn't think we should spend the money.
So Joel, just to help answer that question, there are certain core services that CSSU provides us and that we pay them for that we can't sort of unilaterally decide we don't want to pay them for. I mean, some of them I suppose you could try to reproduce yourself, but it would probably end up costing more. For example, Cindy's and her staff provide HR for the entire SU. So imagine all the payrolls, all the teachers, keeping track of the contract, legal ins and outs of all that. Our share of that cost at CCS is $46,000. So if we had to create our own HR department, I'm sure it would be multiples, a bigger number than that. We pay our share of the superintendent's office. All those things are portioned out roughly by enrollment. So, how many kids we have in Charlotte versus, Williston, CVU, all the rest of them. We're a little more than 10%. There's a, technical term, we call it average daily enrollment, but average daily membership is roughly the number of kids you have, right? So we pick up sort of our share, which is about 10% of those sort of core costs. And then there are other things Kristen alluded to that are sort of processed by the SU, but are sort of either contracted or delivered locally. So we have a food service person, they pay her salary, we pay the SU. We have a bus contract with whoever does our buses. We pay the SU, they pay the bus company. So some of those things aren't necessarily the SU just going wild. Those are things that we decided that we needed. We even chose which provider we were going to have, and then they just handle the payment. Special ed obviously is the biggest of those. It's moved to the model of the SU managing and executing the payments, but the service plans and all that are still formulated with the input from the local schools.
Thank you. Jeff?
So at the risk of beating a dead horse, I'd like to go back to the issue of code principles for a moment.
Jeff, you forgot to say your name.
I'm sorry, my name is Jeff Martin. So one of the things that I hope that we have in our school board members are folks who are looking deeply into the needs of our school and making determinations as to what you think we best need. And hopefully a lot of that lines up with what taxpayers are hoping for, but I expect, as is true in any system, there's going to be times when that isn't true. I don't know when Charlotte last had one administrator, and Clyde, maybe that's something you can address as the member.
93, 94.
Okay. So I remain mystified in some ways as to why this issue keeps coming up. And I think that it keeps coming up because, frankly, I think it's the Trojan horse. I think that it's an easy target because it's a non-contracted, these are non-contracted positions. And I think that a lot of people feel that our contracted staff and employees are making too much money, and they're frustrated because they feel like there's nothing they can do about that. But the fact of the matter is that you're charged with trying to determine what you think is best for the school. And one thing that I hope for as information goes out in preparation for this next vote is that there are some facts specific to what exists within our school, which is that if we have 385 students, if that's an accurate number, if we have 80+ staff and faculty members, that's 470 people right there. That these two folks have responsibility for at some level. Some with direct supervision, some not, but everything falls back to them. They also have parents, lots and lots of parents. Parents like me who probably are at the door too often. They have community members. They have a lot of people to wrestle with. That doesn't even speak to issues like trying to come up to speed with new Common Core standards or other requirements. It doesn't speak to the complexity within each grade and what's required. It doesn't speak to the need, if we want quality teachers, how do we do that if we're not supervising them with some real knowing sense of what's going on in each of those classrooms? How does that get done? Our guidance folks were speaking just a moment ago about how they had a day that completely went over here because they had a student in need and they needed to be available. And that happens for our principals too. I think it's important that there be some facts about the job description that our principals are living each day. I honestly think that people in the community don't fully understand the range of responsibilities that the principals have. And you can go online and just download a job description for an elementary school teacher, for example, and easily find a couple of pages and look at those and say, that's amazing. Look at the number of responsibilities, and still it doesn't include everything that's required. I think this is a strange system that we live in some ways, because while as taxpayers we are paying for the school system, it's somewhat off-putting, I think, to then be able to feel like we can walk into a system and simply pronounce, you should have this and this, but you shouldn't have this and this, and feel that we know better than you as administrators in the school board and teachers who are saying they want this level of supervision and they need this level of supervision. I just don't think it's responsible to think that 470 people can be properly administrated by one person. And we've never had that system, it sounds like, for 20 years plus. And so I don't think it's about co-principals. I think that's been used and abused as a way of trying to express anger and frustration about the amount of property tax that we pay in Charlotte, which everybody's concerned about. I know I've said this before, I'm not happy that we're moving down somewhat in the co-principal model, but I need to accept that because you all are trying to put together a lot of pieces at once, and you feel like that's the best that you can do. And I think that we need to go forward with that model. I hope that we do that. I also just want to finally say, I do not think we can say that the school vote reflected that 500 and some odd people were not in favor of this model. We don't know what those people were in favor of. This has been said already, but there are a number of people who will not vote for the school budget no matter what. And there are some people who are voting against the school budget because there are two principals. But I think that you all, I'm hoping that you continue along this path of trying to assess what you think the kids in our school need and what's best for them, and that you keep advocating for that and pushing for that, and finding ways to really communicate that out to the community so that people can have a better understanding of why this need exists, and why it has existed for years and years and years. And this year should be no different.
Joe. Hi, my name is Joe Ng, and to be honest, when you got first proposed having dual principal a couple of years back, I was skeptic, but I did not say yes or no to it because I think that we need to look at a model that may or may not be working, how to improve it. By improving, we need to make changes. They're incremental changes, they're transformative changes. And when this budget process started in October, I have not yet to hear a single person that convinced me that this co-principal model does not work because what? I have not seen anybody can demonstrate that it did not work because, well, the kids are out of control, they tell the teacher and spray paint like the Roman, nobody do anything about it. What I found out to this year is actually it worked better than like before, because now that there is a person very specifically deal with a groups of kids, a set of grades. Instead of one person doing all from EEE to 8th grade, now you have a go-to person who is specialized in that group. So to me, and I think that it will actually better than like before. And it is unfortunate that people would say, well, we don't like it because everybody doesn't like it. I don't know what all those 500 people were thinking. If I know, I won't be here. So, I mean, I'll be doing something else, probably making less of on Monday too. So I want to thank the board. It's a thankless job. It is something that people will target you. I don't know why. As a community, I thought we're supposed to work as a community with each other, not against, well, we're gonna me against you. I don't know what households had ever come together because me against you, the kids against the parents against each other. How does that unit work? I don't know. Usually end up not well. So I would like to ask the community, just be respectful. I mean, we have a group of people who are not getting paid, but volunteer their time and give their time with their families. But yet, we are in a school trying to educate the next generation, yet I see behavior that we kind of forgotten when we learn in grade schools, in the playgrounds. Hey, play nice, share, compromise. It seems as we get older, we kind of move away from it and say, well, this is my conviction. I give people kudos for having a conviction to stand up to your belief, but it takes courage to reach across the divine. They say to work with people who may not share the same value as we do. So I'm asking the community to say, if we don't like this, we should work together and figure out how to help the board to get it to where we need to be. There is a bigger piece of in Montpelier. They have a much bigger impact on our property tax rate than the school board right here. So it seems every single year that all the board that I come to, we all end up in the same place and say, we're going to beat on the board, we're going to make them do something. Why don't we ask, what can we do to help the board? We have the email address. It is on the web. We can call them and process started in October. And I hardly see people come until something blow up. 3 years ago when the budget didn't pass, 100 people show up and they were beating on the board. They said, why aren't you guys there in the beginning to work with the board to figure it out so that we don't get to the same point every single time? Just like the movie Groundhog Day. Why we keep repeating the same process over and over when things don't work? Let's get to the beginning, make sure it works, and hopefully it will pass, so we don't have in the same position. So thank for the board and thank for the communities by being participating in this process. It's messy, but I think we can get through it. Thank you.
Jason Bushy. So I just was, I hear a lot of numbers. I'm a taxpayer as well here. So can you remind me, if we were to cut one principal entirely, what would the savings be on a $400,000 phone? Was that number discussed last?
35.
About $35 a year.
So we're talking about bake sale money, essentially. I mean, $35 on a $400,000 house. Is that, am I understanding that right?
Sorry, that's no.
I forgot to follow up with Bob. I feel like he said that at a board meeting, and I did say at the last meeting he couldn't remember. I thought it was somewhere between $30 and $40. Or did you figure it out?
It's going to be something like a penny on the tax rate from where we're at now.
So I guess the point is, we're not talking about hundreds of dollars, we're not talking about thousands of dollars, we're talking about big sale money, something that's really insignificant. And I just wanted to note that I went to Bridport Central, K-8 school. So I just was curious because we had one principal there when I was there, and I've talked to a lot of community members who said, hey, we only had one principal when I was in school. And they have 100 students, and they have 2 principals. which I was very surprised. So, 385 students, I was thinking, well, that justifies it. I don't see 2 principals as a luxury to run the school. And I would like to say thank you to Jeff, because I had not considered your point of view until you just spoke, saying that it's not just the students, it's 470 people, plus the people we can't count, the community members. So I think that's really the cost, is looking at the total number of people for the impact. I think there's just a disconnect with the community, lack of communication on the need and necessity of having 2 principals. I think a lot of the hardships on tax responsibility in the town is because of lack of industry in our community. So hopefully we can tie that in with the town plan to move forward and get some more industry maybe in the town to help settle that down. And also the mandates and regulations coming down from the federal and state levels. So I think there's some perspective to be shared with the community on those points that maybe will help the rest of us understand more clearly really where the costs are coming from and the impact it has for us. So I just wanted to say thanks.
Good, Andrew.
Thank you, Mark. Andrew Hagney. I don't know exactly how things were around here in the early 1990s, but and it's probably a stretch to say that you could spank the bad kids back in the early 1990s, but it's fair to say that today things are a lot different. The administrative burden on the school is a lot different than it was then. I failed to see the wisdom in bringing us back to an administrative model from sort of a bygone era. I wish that there were a way we could make it cheaper, but as I see it, it's what it is, and I think we need to support the budget. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, that's it.
I have one more question, sorry. Not truly about the budget, but we keep being told that there's 2.5 FTE principals. Where's the other 0.5? It's supposedly for special education. We never see any name, we never see any number. Why is that in the equation?
2.5.
Connie Engel is our special ed administrator. She's a 0.5 administrator, 0.5 speech language pathologist. Her salary is up at the CSSU level though, but we pay for her salary in a sense by the apportionment of about 10% of the special ed cost.
She's not a principal, she's our special ed administrator. She's an administrator.
And so we pay that on top of the 2 principals and what we send to the CSSU district?
No, she's part of the overall special ed budget for the entire CSSU.
So we don't.
So we have a 0.5 special ed. I believe Heinsberg has a 0.5. Shelburne probably has 1 full-time. So all those special ed administrators' salaries are part of the overall special ed budget, and then we get a portion 10%, or roughly 10%.
I know you all know that I've been asking a lot of questions now, striving to understand the position and the everything, but I can tell you that answers are slow coming, and
Oh, no, that's not true. No, Tammy,
some
they
of
have
them
been answered within 24
bad.
hours, and
however,
there's been a lot of questions. They have been very responsive.
A lot of administrative time answering the questions.
Don't you think the public deserves to know what the answers are?
Of course they do.
And they should be, I think, appreciative that they're getting the time. I mean, I think it's just unfair to say that they weren't responding to time.
I mean, as board members, I don't think we get as much access as been given to try to answer the questions.
So we have about a 1-to-8 ratio, adult to child ratio at CCS. If you figure in like the 27 paraeducators and the 25 teachers or something or other. But when I called the school today, I could not get an answer to, well, actually I called a couple days ago, but anyways, I wanted to know how many teachers there are and how many kids are in each classroom, because at several of your meetings, you seem to mention a lot about the 5th grade where there's 25. So.
It was in our board packet, which is online. You can look at it every
I was told
week
from your
before meeting.
Charlotte school that Greg would be talking to Cindy to provide me that information. Do you feel like I'm getting the runaround a little bit?
No.
Sometimes.
No, you've gotten a lot of information this week, and if she didn't answer something just today, that's not fair.
We spend a fortune in administrative costs kind of stuff. You know, there are 37 employees to the CSSU district for over $2 million in salary alone. That doesn't even cover the benefits that get added on, which isn't included in that.
Mhm.
So that's just huge, you know, huge up there, huge administrative cost everywhere. And that's why the people of Charlotte are saying no.
Appreciate it.
I'm not included in that opinion.
No, many of us are not.
Well, that's because you didn't.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I've been thinking, my name is Debbie Deal. I've been thinking back over the many meetings that I've attended in this process, and I'm remembering that there was other reasons why people were going to vote no. And I know what caught me off guard was one parent said she was voting no because there was no enrichment in the budget, and there was really nothing to encourage our great students to be greater. That it was really just a skin and bones budget, and she said, I don't like it. I want enrichment. I want to see something that pushes our kids forward and past everybody else. So she said she and her husband were voting no. I know that there was another person that was just upset because his taxes were higher, but he didn't really seem to have any maybe concrete specifics about what was wrong with this Charlotte budget. And I remember another person had a lot of questions and didn't understand the special ed concerns, and I know Bob was going to set up a special time to meet with him to go over those things with him. So I guess as I'm thinking back over all of the conversations I've listened to, there was a lot more reasons for no. It wasn't really focused on to administrators.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the irony to the tax thing is that, you know, the CCS budget, at least as it stands now, is 0.8%. Would have been 0.9% increase prior to this. Not quite, but whatever. $25,000 isn't even 0.1%, but including the $180,000, which the town did approve of fund balance, which is effectively money that was raised and we were prudent, you know, things fell out in such a way that we didn't spend quite as much as we had budgeted. So there's $180,000 extra to apply towards this budget. So net between that and the budget, which we worked very hard to keep under control, CCS was contributing to a reduction in the tax rate. And the CVU budget, which did pass, I think was 2.9% additive to our tax rate this year. So I do think there's maybe a disconnect between people's frustration with the property taxes and where exactly they're directing their anger. I think the gentleman made a good point, which is, you know, there's a general sense that taxes are too high, that school budgets are to blame, and that the two-principal model seems, at first glance, to some people as being symbolic of sort of frivolous spending. And I think we've, you know, done our best to understand exactly what the administrative needs are, and, you know, the majority of the board would find it irresponsible to go to one person. I mean, if we have two people here who are working very, very hard, it's implausible to me that you could get rid of one of them and continue to succeed. So, you know, this is a budget that doesn't add to our taxes this year, and, you know, is doing our best to keep delivering a good product. So it's not clear to me that the principal thing really is, should be as big an issue as it has become.
Okay. Moving on. He says.
Based on the first page is the budget that failed, the second 2 pages are the next one, sorry, one more. is the 25,000 reduction.
So, but this does not include the $180,000 house.
So the tax, so on a $250,000 house, it
Oh,
will
yeah,
go
there it
down
is.
by
Sorry,
30.
I need new glasses. So on a $250,000 home, our budget will reduce taxes by $34. And on a $400,000 home, our budget will reduce taxes by $54. Okay, thank you.
Mark, someone's had a question.
Oh, sorry, I missed you in the back, I'm very sorry.
That's all right, Charles Boudelier. I just wanted to commend the board as I did last week. I think you guys are doing a great job. I think you are listening to the community. I'm a new resident in town as of May. I have not, I'll be honest, I have not been to every school board meeting, but I've been to the majority. I think some people would say they recognize me here now. And the overall tone that I take from these meetings of people who are speaking up and care about this issue is that it is largely positive. They're in favor of the two-principal model and the budget as a whole. So I just wanted to express that I think you guys are listening, doing a great job. And I am one who is definitely going to work to make sure that the budget gets passed and you know, that we have a good community, that we are working together, and we do support one each other, and we support the school, and we support the kids. It's really what it boils down to. So thank you.
Okay, so moving on, he says again. All right. We're going to move on to action matters, which is stuff we
I need to send these to be printed for the board to sign off on if you're going to approve the budget tonight. But I also need to know if you're officially moving it to April 9th. So
April 13th.
April 13th.
Yes.
So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. Go ahead.
Okay. So
Maybe there's one more small thing on the warning. It says 17H. I don't think it totally matters, but if you are reprinting.
Which one is it on?
The warning.
For the hearing or the town?
For the hearing, sorry.
And what's the correction?
Oh, and actually it's on the meeting too. It's just for the
the T
date,
is
it says
missing.
17H on
Or
both.
17H right here.
Thank you.
Very small detail.
But only if you're reprinting. If you're not,
I'm reprinting it because you have to sign the.
So on action matters, 8.1 got moved till next week, till next month, next week. 8.2, appointing some committee appointments and CSSU board reps. We have 2 board reps to CSSU. We have 3. Wow. Okay. 3 board reps to CSSU, a facilities committee, a policy committee. Am I missing anything?
I have a list. Fill in the box.
Oh, we have to reappoint for that too?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Here's the full list. Negotiations.
Just a point, you just tell everybody what.
No. Negotiations, facility, technology, which,
We don't have.
yeah, I was gonna say, I don't remember that one. A PTO rep and 3 reps to the CSSU school board, which means you will have a meeting in half an hour. I have been on the facilities committee and the negotiations committee for the current round with the paraeducators and whatnot, and willing to keep doing that. But am opening this up to anybody that has anything that they're particularly passionate about.
Well, I hope that you stay as negotiations, because I think it'd be hard to have a different person midway.
That's fine,
through
and you know
the
what, we're
para.
really not that
Yeah.
far along. We had a couple snowouts, actually tomorrow night is sort of really the bigger meeting. But let's start with the toughest one. Who wants to be on the CSSU board?
Well, I was on that board last year.
Yep.
But before we talked about that, could you tell me a little bit more about the policy committee? Because I think I'd be interested in trying different committees. Cindy would love to tell you about it.
The policy committee is responsible for reviewing all of the CSSU policies. We do them in a regular review cycle plus as requested or when the state changes them. There's one rep from each board. Kristen's been doing it for several years now. We typically right now meet on Wednesday mornings. So but we adjust that every year once we know the committee structure.
So after the board meeting the following Wednesday?
Yeah, okay.
Or?
Roughly,
Okay.
depending on school breaks and things like that.
And it's only really September, October.
Right, we take a break during
November-
budget.
Not
decision.
November, and then meet up again February, March, April. So it's usually only
About 6 meetings.
5 or 6 meetings. It's interesting.
So, since I've done the CSSU board, I'd like to try a different committee this year.
Okay. And now, would you like to try the policy thing?
I'd like to try that, or this, is the technology committee a?
You can do both.
Yeah, is that a
We don't-
standing
but do we-
committee?
Yeah.
I hadn't heard of that
Step out,
before.
talk to my printer. I'll be right
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think we have it.
We currently don't have a board member on this technology
Mhm.
committee.
But you
Yeah, I'd be interested in being on the technology committee, just because I don't know.
And you want to fill any other roles? I mean, I'll fill you in. Eric has offered to be on the CSSU board. Is there anybody else that would like to do it?
I'm willing to stay on.
All right.
I thought Clyde might want to, but I think, no.
All right.
And what's PTO? We have a liaison to PTO?
We have not had a liaison to the PTO, but I'm sure they would love one.
Well, I
mean,
go to
Susan
the, I go
goes.
to PTO board meetings. So,
Susan, you know of
All
3.
right, so maybe I'll step off the policy committee. I'll do technology, PTO,
Okay.
and
Okay.
then Clyde can do policy, and you guys can do CSSU.
I will fill the third seat at CSSU if nobody else wants to do it.
They really like the chair
Yeah,
to
you
do it.
can.
I'm so sorry. I didn't tell you that when I nominated you.
Yeah, you're fine.
But if the technology turns out to not be a committee, per se, that has meets very often, then I'll do the policy committee.
All
I mean,
right, so-
what is the technology committee? I mean, is it a committee?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we
get
meet monthly.
yeah. We have, it's made up of teachers, support staff, possibly a parent next year. And we basically talk about supporting effective technology integration. So enhancing instruction with the technology. This year, we've been a little bit lopsided with our focus. It's been around preparing for SBAC.
And is it a regular date? Do you want to know the date and time?
It is now.
Still there?
It is now, but it has, you know, it hasn't been set in stone.
Mm-hmm.
It's been the second Wednesday at 3:15.
To 4:45.
Well, yes, we
Yeah.
expanded it because of SBAC, but it was an hour a month generally after school.
So,
All
are
right.
you willing to do policy?
I'll do policy.
All
All
right.
right. Cool.
So then the next policy is Wednesday. That works out great because I had a conflict actually. Wednesday, next Wednesday at 8.
And
8 a.m. Here in the office conference.
All right, if we did everything they did, that would be like, great. All right, so let's just walk through these real quick. So let's do the CSSU board first. I nominate Eric, Kristen, and myself to serve as our reps to the CSSU. All those in favor?
You just appoint us.
Oh, you don't even have to vote?
Just
All right, fine.
I'll second it and vote.
Policy committee is Clyde. I will finish up the negotiations and continue to serve on the facilities committee.
Thank you for doing that.
The PTO rep will be Susan, and the technology committee rep will be Susan as well. Everybody okay with that? Excellent. So, moving on. 8.3, approving the revised budget. So, we have a revised budget to approve the total amount of $7,570,996, which represents a $25,000 reduction from the previous amount voted down on town meeting day. Do I have a motion to approve said budget?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And then the rest are dates. So approve a budget informational hearing for March 31st. I don't think that has to change.
I move to have the budget informational hearing on March 31st at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, 6 o'clock. Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? 8.5, approved warning article for, this is the date that's going to change from what's on here to April 13th, 2015.
I don't know if do we need to wait to get the new printed out one from Cindy?
No, I don't think we have to wait. We're just approving the date. And then we
Okay.
all have to sign it. We all have to sign the warning anyway.
Okay, I move to approve the warning and article for April 13th, 2015 special meeting for the budget.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, now we have to wait. We have to approve a sample ballot. Oh, actually, the ballot's probably fine.
That date changes too, but.
So do I hear a motion to approve the ballot pending the change in date to April 13th?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, does anybody need anything pulled out of the consent agenda, 9.0?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? 10.0, director's comments. You start at your end, Clyde. Anything for us?
Anybody here besides me get the American School Board Journal?
I do. I haven't read it yet, though.
You see the picture on the cover?
Didn't register today.
I'll bring my copy. We'll make it a discussion item at the next meeting.
Okay. I'm now interested. Kristen.
Well, thank you all for coming, and thank you to Vicki and Kathy. It was a really great presentation. I have the happy song stuck in my head. But I really wanted to thank Jeff, and maybe Joe's on this committee too, the diversity committee. It's Reading 10 Racism Week at CCS, and it is just such a great program. It's a program that the students and the entire staff really enjoys. And this year, I think this is the first time, one of the paraeducators is an author, and he read a book that he wrote to the entire school yesterday, and I just heard glowing reviews about it today while I was there. And I just think it's a great program. I really appreciate all the time and effort you all put into not only being on the committee, but making sure that's a really successful event every year.
I just wanted to make the comment that I appreciate things that people said tonight, and that you know, the community seems like it's had its reputation tarnished a little bit in the last couple of weeks, and I really feel like after watching that presentation, looking at the kids and seeing their faces at CCS, you know, reminding me why everyone's here, and that we are a community that values children. And I think passing this budget will send that message very clearly. And thank you all for, I know you guys are really going to do a great job of getting the message out there, and you know, working towards making this revote, you know, in favor of this very good, strong budget that we've put together with a lot of hours and hard work and input from the community. I think we've responded to lots of comments that people have made, and so I really feel like going into this revote, I feel very positive. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone who came and said their piece. I appreciate it. I like to see this many people come to our meetings. These presentations, like the presentation you saw tonight, they're informative. There's one almost every meeting. You get a lot more, you understand a lot more about what happens at the school if you saw every single one of those that got presented. They're all online, but the personal touch is always much better.
And if any of them want to stay, what's the common topic, Cindy?
For which one?
For right now?
Tonight there isn't one.
Oh, there isn't
We
one.
are-
Never mind. I mean, you can stay for the CSSU meeting.
Yeah, the CSSU meeting follows us at 7 o'clock. We're adjourned. Thank you.